Hello, people. Welcome to Thursday night, the last Thursday of the month, Fiction Book Club. I'm eating a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, so just finishing that. That'll be my sugar to keep me awake during the hour. Hello to the three of you, Mitch, Scott, and Dragon Slayer. Wow, fantastic. Mm, get this peanut butter out of my mouth. Unbelievable. Love Reese's. Um, I forgot to put my mic on. Doggone. So let me start all over. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I was eating a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, trying to get enough sugar in this old man to stay awake for a while. Hello, S.J. Mullen. So anyhow, welcome to the Thursday night, or last Thursday of the month, Fiction Book Club. And we're finishing Enforcing Home, book 6 of A American series. I will put the link to book 7 down below for tonight's it probably won't happen tonight. It may happen late tomorrow. Tomorrow is the Rec Center has their monthly senior trip. We're going to Fredericksburg, going to a seed farm so we can see all the beautiful bluebonnets. I hope I get this is Lady Bird Johnson area, and I hope I get some good pictures of bluebonnets for y'all. We do have a lot around here, but they're starting to kind of dry out. Bluebonnets in Texas mean two things: the beginning of tornado season and the beginning of rattlesnake season. And another thing that a lot of people who aren't native to Texas come down here and they start walking into the fields of bluebonnets with their kids, and don't do that. Please don't do that. There's probably going to be a Western Diamondback in the middle of those bluebonnets. So they like the bluebonnets as much as we do. But so tomorrow's the senior trip. I'll be going down to Fredericksburg. We'll be going to a chocolatier. We'll be going to the Admiral Nimitz Museum, and then we'll be going to a wildflower. What would you call it? Garden, I guess, where they grow flowers and collect their seeds. And during bluebonnet season, it's against the law to mow down a bluebonnet in Texas. That's our state flower. So they're only up for about a month and a half, 6 weeks or so, 6, 8 weeks. And the red ones you find interspersed with those are called Indian paintbrushes. And so the combination of the blue Texas bluebonnets and the red Indian paintbrushes is just gorgeous. I'll try to get some good pictures and put them up for everybody. And of course, Admiral Chester Nimitz was the Cinque Pact Commander-in-Chief Pacific during World War II. He had everything south of one area everything south of a certain line. And then General MacArthur had everything north of that line. So that's how they kind of divided up the Pacific Theater of Operations. Hello, Stray Kitten. Okay, so let's get into gosh, this book is something else. There are times that it kind of drug, but there are times that you just could not put it down. I mean, it was just going. It was full going. Got to get into book 7 because right at the end of book 6 we've got another injury to another member of Morgan's family. So it's just something else. So it starts off. It looks like Sarge and Kay are becoming a thing. Remember, Kay was the older lady who ran the kitchen at the DHS camp, and Sarge, of course, is the retired first sergeant, 101st Airborne, and he always has a 101st Airborne hat on. Hello, Holly. And Butch, welcome. And then Kay, of course, escaped when Alec shot Sarge and Sarge shot Alec. So they were kind of a thing. Alec was basically betraying the DHS, and he was trying to rescue the girls, and that was Jess, Mary, Fred, and and then they brought Kay along. Yeah. So Jess, Mary, and Fred were in about ready to be executed, as a matter of fact. And Alec went in and saved them. And in the process of saving them, Sarge was saving the entire camp. So, of course, Alec's in a DHS outfit, and Sarge sees him with the girls in the prison. Sarge shoots Alec in the shoulder. Alec shoots Sarge in his titanium hip, and that's how things go. So Sarge doesn't like being shot, does he? So there's a couple things that happen. The very first one is Sarge gives his rule for how to deal with people who are suspect. Hello, David Lynn. Who are suspect as far as their integrity and whether or not they've been doing good things. And he comes up with his rule. And his rule is, when in doubt, the gray matter comes out. So he just walks up and does the, I forget, it even mentions it in the book, the police chief in Saigon when they brought in that one Viet Cong or suspected Viet Cong. So that was the kind of justice that Sarge applies in the field. Let me get my glasses. Later on, so that was the execution of the attempted rapist. So one of the things that Sarge and we're probably going to have a little bit more. I asked you last night to think about it. I will probably have a little bit more of a discussion about this as we get further on into the book. I think it's something critical we have to consider ahead of time, because not only is it mentioned here in book 6 of this, but we also had, when I had Steve Smith on and we were talking about his book 6, the same issue comes up. What do we do for law enforcement and criminal justice in a without rule of law or a post-SHTF environment? How do we handle the small things and how do we handle the large things? And both of these books are exploring those dimensions as far as, what do we do? How do we handle justice and criminal justice and corrections and all these other things? Some of the things that were in this book that really caught me was Morgan came up with an idea. Thad came up with the idea. They're trying, the chickens are not getting enough chicken feed, and so they didn't know what to do. And they had just butchered, I forget what it was that they butchered, but they butchered something, and they took a lot of the entrails and put it into a bucket, and then they drilled holes in the bucket. And they suspended the bucket over the chicken coop. So what would happen, of course, is the flies and maggots would come. The flies would come in and try to eat the rotting meat, and they would have, of course, the maggots, and the maggots would fall to the ground, and that's what the chickens would then consume for their chicken meal, and it was working out pretty good for them. So I thought that was a very unique thing, is using scrap or waste, animal waste, and creating a maggot bucket to feed chickens so that you can have a continual production of either chickens or eggs, whichever one you wanted. Another one that caught me was Sarge mentioned that he always operates with his safety off. Don't know why. I have in my mind that Sarge walks with an M1911. And if you have an M1911, then it has a hand grip safety in it anyway. But it's also hammer fired. It's a single action. So you have to, you can't pull the trigger if the hammer's in the down position. It has to be cocked back and then released. Now, once you fire the first round, of course, when the ejection of that round, the slide then automatically cocks it for the next round. So it becomes, it's where you can just pull the trigger and keep on going. But it is single action for that first one. So that kind of caught me that he said he always walked with his safety off. So that kind of blew my perception that he was using an M1911. My preferred is a Glock 21. So the Glock 21 is a 45 caliber double stack, and it's got, of course, the Glock double trigger. So Glocks do not have an external safety. They have the double trigger. So you have to kind of depress the first trigger. So if you imagine it's got this and it's got this type of a deal here, so that, if you look at it from the side, you've got to depress this one, the middle one, in order to get the other two to depress. So that's the safety mechanism on the Glock. And I know the Glock 19, a lot of people bought the Glock 19 9mm, probably the most popular gun in the U.S. as far as sales over the course of the last 3 years. And it's also the number one, hello, Hoosier prepping nurse. It's also the number one returned gun because people weren't used to the fact that it didn't have a safety. And so Sarge says, carry your weapon with your safety off, and a round in the chamber, because you just don't know. That split second may cost you something in the future. I'm a contrarian. I do not carry anything in the chamber. I'm just safety conscious. So yeah, it may take me an extra second to rack that, but I would prefer to have, if I dropped it or anything else. One time when I sold my store, for some stupid reason, I didn't put on a belt that morning, and I had my pistol in my belt, and at that time I think I was carrying my Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, and but it wasn't the Glock, but it did have a safety on it. And I bent over to do something, and my holster and everything just fell out and fell on the floor. It scared her to death. I mean, I have never seen anybody's eyes get that big that quick. And I just quickly said, "Oops, I'm sorry," and put it back in my pants and pulled my shirt over it. And up until that time, she didn't know that I normally carried, and it totally surprised her. But okay, so he says carry with the round in the chamber and the safety off. I don't agree with that, but that's just me. So Mike and Jeff were out scouting, and they came up with a challenge and reply system. And the challenge and reply system, and I think this is really critical. We discussed this as well in the Stonemont series. Remember, Naomi in the Stonemont series had the same thing where she faced her mother when her mother was in, I don't know what we're going to call it, wigwam, I guess, for lack of a better word. Maybe it was a cabin. And so Naomi's mother was there, and Naomi stood out in front and just looked at the cabin. Her mother came out, looked at her, looked at the son, then went back inside the cabin. Then Naomi went inside the cabin alone. Then she came back out and got, I think it was Christian, and allowed him to come in. So that was their way of communicating. Naomi, by standing there all by herself and looking, a certain way, gave the signal, hey, I am here with friends, not with enemies. I'm not here under coercion. When her mother stepped out and looked at the son, that gave her the signal, there's nobody inside the cabin either. It's all clear for you to come in. So Scott and Mike, Mike and Jeff worked out that same kind of a signaling system between the two of them in case somebody was captured. And it just so happened they were out. I believe it was Ted that was with them. And so they had worked out this system ahead of time. Ted was left behind while Mike and Ted went out and did the scouting, and Jeff was left behind. And then when they came back, Jeff did not give the right signal that it was clear. That's how they knew that he had been captured and he was under duress. And so they came back in a different route and took care of the situation. So I think that's going to be critical when you get your group together, that you do the exact same thing. Pepper Prepper, hello, welcome. I haven't seen you before. But gosh, glad to see you. I hope you give us a like and a subscribe. Would greatly love to see you join us on a regular basis. Diana too, howdy, welcome. So then, let me see here. My notes as I read the book. What do you do with people with a serious disease? And we're going to see all kinds of serious diseases. So here we have the family, and I forget their names. I didn't write it down. But the kids are playing with another set of kids, and the family wants water. They're evacuating and moving along the highway, and it becomes obvious that they are ill. They're coughing. They're doing all kinds of. They had all the classic signs of TB. So they reported that to Doc. Doc looked at them and said, "Okay, we probably need to quarantine you for a couple of weeks. Stay in your home." And so they put him under quarantine, and sure enough, the parents came down with tuberculosis. The children, as it stands right now at the end of the book, don't appear to have tuberculosis. And finally, Doc gets some antibiotics, appropriate antibiotics from the Army, and is beginning to treat that right at the end of the book. So they do have something where they can treat tuberculosis. But, that's where, if you remember, we had those books, what are some of the critical it was at the end of A. American and Alan Kay's book on survivalism. And in it, the last chapter, the last appendix was books that he recommended you have for your library. That's going to be oh so critical, because if we get into a total without rule of law, S hits the fan type of an environment, you're going to have to start diagnosing things, and you're not going to have modern technology. You're not going to be able to take blood samples or stool samples or urine samples or anything else and put them under a microscope. So you're going to have to do this pretty much just with observable symptoms. So knowing that there are communicable diseases out there, cholera, typhus, typhoid, dysentery, tuberculosis, and all these other diseases, how do you identify those? And then how do you keep that disease from spreading inside your community? How are you going to put people in quarantine and protect your other members from them? That's going to be really, really important. So it looks like we're losing Dragon Slayer. Let me check here in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm getting so excited reading about this book that. Oh no, yeah, get going, Dragon Slayer. We were under tornado watch all last night. Nothing happened, and so that was during that when we were on live last night. We had a tornado watch, but no warning, thank God. So if you got a tornado warning, please take care. And she's also got her mother, so make sure you take care of her as well. Let me see. They emphasize again, and I've emphasized it so often, it's pitiful. I think it's just the military training. We prefer a rifle over a pistol for a self-defense weapon all the time. 11 times out of 10, I will go with a rifle over a pistol if I'm given a choice of only one of the two. Number one, it's got a longer range. Number two, you can use it as an offensive club. Number three, it's usually got a larger magazine. Number four, it's got more knockdown power than a pistol does. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch. There's a plethora of reasons why you want a rifle over a pistol. I was watching, oh gosh, who is it? Oh, Warrior Poet today. And he happened to have an AR with a machete for it. Basically, it looked like a machete for a bayonet that he had his armorer friend adapt so he could put this bayonet onto the AR platform for his wife. I thought that was hilarious. And another thing is the girls wanted to learn how to shoot combat shooting. And so they were anticipating going out to the target range and just doing targets, and they were drilling them. And this is where Dalton comes into the picture. And the girls are kind of suspicious of him because he's a weird duck. And we finally find out, getting close to the end of the book, that he was a prison guard. And before that, he was in the military. And so, yeah, he's got a lot of strange techniques and things that he does. But he was teaching the girls combat shooting, and there's a big difference between combat shooting and target shooting. And for those of you who go out every month, quarter, whatever, just to target shoot, I strongly encourage you to get with a combat shooting organization, get some combat shooting training. There's a whole difference between standing, kneeling, prone position, squatting, and shooting at a target, even 300 feet away, 100 yards away. And because in the Army, we had to qualify, and one series of targets was 350 feet. So 120 yards, basically. And, that was just so small in the peep sight. Hello, Clarity Jane. Yeah, here we go. Scott kind of reinforces that the pistol is just to get back to your rifle. David Lynn's saying he prefers a pump shotgun. That's fine. Pump shotguns probably have an effective range of about 25 yards, a max effective range. Slug, you might get a little bit further. But like I said, with the AR-15, the M16, I was shooting out to 350 feet and had no problems whatsoever. And so I have a tendency, and everything. Remember, everything is situational. Depending upon, if you're indoors, yes, a pump shotgun. As a matter of fact, in World War I, in trench warfare, the Germans tried to have the Geneva Convention declare this pump shotgun, the M70, 870, the Remington 870 at that time, the predecessor, declared as an illegal, inhumane weapon. So yeah, the pump shotgun, the shotgun has been notorious for a long time, but that's a close range weapon, and you want something you can use for a little bit longer. Yeah, home defense, short barrel shotgun. I wouldn't use my Remington 870. I've got a 32-inch barrel on it with a modified choke for duck season. So, I probably would not use that. And it's ribbed and, oh gosh. But, for home defense, you can do other things. You can also turn your pistol into a shotgun in a, in a fancy sense. CCI, I don't know what that stands for. It's the name of an ammunition manufacturer. I know for certain that they have 38 Special 357 snake shot, and I know for certain they have 22 long rifle snake shot. And so what they've done is they've got basically number 9 pellets that they put into a 357 and a 22 long rifle pistol or round. And then what you can do is when you fire that, of course, it's encapsulated in plastic and it goes through the plastic and then it becomes a shotgun round. As a matter of fact, when I go to my brother-in-law's ranch and we're riding around, I keep the first 3 rounds in my pistol. It's a revolver with snake shot, and then the next 3 are jacketed hollow point. So that's. But anyhow, the advice in the book is always choose a rifle over a pistol. Then. One of the great things, they were reinstituting the market in Umatello. And he was talking to a guy who had the ingenious thing. He had a grinding wheel that was electric, and he had converted it over to where he could operate a treadle and put that with a belt around the stone, and then he was operating a treadle down below. And so he opened the knife sharpening business because he had this basically circular stone, where he could really do a good fine grit on knives just by pedaling. And so I thought that was a really ingenious thing. Think of the things that you can do. What are you going to do to add value after SHTF? So here this guy is converting electricity to foot power and using it to sharpen knives. There was an apiary, of course. I forget the couple's name. There's a couple who has an apiary, and they're selling honey and honeycomb. There were some farmers, and they had their things that they were farming and selling. So that's a couple of things. If I was planning on discharging more than 6 rounds, yes, I would. And I do have 2 extra speed loaders that I keep with jacketed hollow points for the 357, but that's not my primary carry anymore. It was for a while, but it's not anymore. Now my primary carry is the Glock 21 with 2 extra magazines, so I have a total of 3 magazines. And then before that, it was my Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0, and I carried it with 1 extra magazine. So you do have slightly more, because of the size of the round, you have a couple more rounds in the magazine for a 9mm than you do for a 45. I have not yet carried my 40 caliber, and I'm trying to find the right holster for it. Remember, my Ruger 357 is in a leather holster, and just here in the last 7 years, I have become allergic to leather. So I've got to find some modern technology for a safe way to carry that, so that I don't break out from the holster. So that's one way you can see. I don't wear leather shoes. My shoes are these. What do they call them? Anyhow, I have cloth shoes. My boots are a form of cloth. They were made in Germany. They're Luves. And then my belt is not leather. My belt is one of these fancy cloth things with the D-ring belt buckle. So everything on me is non-leather. And so that 357 Ruger Security 6 in a leather holster, that causes me some problems at the end of the day. Yes, I agree. Double up buckshot is great if you have a short barreled shotgun in your home. And that's something I never thought of. I was watching Warrior Poet, and he was talking about, do you want to have the light? I bought an Olight Balder S combination strobe and flashlight, or no, laser and flashlight for my rifle. And I was watching, it was on sale. So I got a $185 flashlight for about $85. I just thought that was wonderful, and still haven't attached it. It's still in the box. But I was watching Warrior Poet, and he said, do you really want to have a light on your weapon? Because that just makes you a target. And so what he does is he uses, I forget what he uses, but he uses a separate flashlight, and he holds it in one hand while he has his rifle in the other. And that way, anything that's going to be shot is going to be shot at that flashlight and not at his hand. It also gives him the ability to distract, to point, to look, and everything else without moving his weapon around. And I thought, wow, that's a great idea. So he uses a 750 lumen flashlight. And so what I'm going to use is I'm going to use my Olight. What is this called? I forget the name of it. Arcfeld. There we go. Arcfeld. But this is 1,000 lumens, and it also has a green laser on it. So that's what I'll be using if I use the methodology that Warrior Poet Society is recommending. And I like 20 gauge. I really do like 20 gauge. And I do have a short barrel 20 gauge and just absolutely love the living daylights out of it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you there. So, Holly, what I would recommend, I don't know your age and I don't know your physical condition. There's the American Cane Self-Defense, ACSD, out of Miami, Florida. And really great instruction. I think you can get the 6-week course over Zoom, 2 classes a week, 6 weeks, and a fighting cane for around $350. I'm in week 2. We just, as a matter of fact, today we finished week 2, lesson 2. So today's lesson we learned how to do a figure 8 with your hand on the shaft, a figure 8 with your hand on the horn straight, figure 8 with the hand on the horn reverse, forward standard spin, and a forward reverse spin. And so that's all the stuff we did today. So now I have to practice that and do a video on it. We learned basically a Tai Chi movement last Monday, and it was called the Form 1. So it's really great. Oh, you're a youngster. All right. So this might be appropriate for you. American Cane Self-Defense. The owner of the company is a guy by the name of Joe Rubino. He's been doing it probably for about 40 years. He was taught by one of the best. And if you go to ACSD, American Cane Self-Defense, he even gives you a free half-hour to 1-hour consultation, and to see whether or not it's the right thing for you, whether or not you're really going to be committed to it, and whether or not you need to buy a different cane. The problem, and I've ordered one, it just hasn't arrived yet. The problem with a standard walking cane, this is the one I got from the Army when I broke my back. So the problem is that the crook here is not wide enough to get your hand into, so you can do spinning and everything else. So you need a wider crook. And that's what the only difference between a standard cane and a fighting cane is the distance of the crook. The horn itself comes out, flares out a little bit more. And instead of being rounded, this is pointy, so that if you pull into somebody, you're going to do some cutting and ripping instead of having that rounded end where you're just going to do some blunt trauma. The other thing is, if you're like I am, I'm still recovering from my hip transplant. The cane is a medical device. And according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, they can't even ask you why you're carrying one. So as long as you don't look suspicious, as long as you're using it the proper way as an assistant when you're walking, and you're allowed to take it onto any aircraft. You're allowed to take it into any courtroom. So that's one of those self-defense tools that is a medical device that you can use as a self-defense tool. So that's kind of the way that is. Let me see here. Oh, boomstick. You wanted boomstick is what you're talking about. Okay, good. Gotcha. Because it auto-corrected on your second attempt to tell us what was going on. I was wondering what was going on. So now you got me straight. Now you straightened me out. Yeah, Holly. So I've made it through the first 4 classes with my just standard medical cane, and that's good. But now with class 4, we're starting to get into the spinning, and so when we do the spinning, my hand is too big to fit in here to spin it. Okay, so I just can't spin it. It gets locked. It gets tightened. So I need my fighting cane. I hope it arrives in the mail tomorrow. I was expecting it today. Let me see here. So Dragon Slayer, I bought my wife that exact same model, and I bought my daughter that exact same model for Christmas 2 years ago. It is a fantastic piece of equipment. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Very worth the money. We have not had any problems with any of them so far. And as a matter of fact, we even got them in nice feminine colors for them. And so, yes, it's a very good piece of equipment. Yes, that's what my wife and daughter carry. So thank you, Dragon Slayer. It's a good thing to point out. And in my opinion, and please don't take this wrong, because it is a guy carry too, but I think it's an ideal self-defense tool for women. Because, as Dragon Slayer pointed out, it is lightweight. It is a little bit smaller. It's kind of fits in that realm of a subcompact compact weapon. So it is something that is very maneuverable and everything else. The disadvantage. So remember, you have the basics of physics. For every force, there's an opposite and equal. Or for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So you're thrusting, let's say, 135 grain bullet out this way at a muzzle velocity of, let's say, 1,300 feet per second. That translates to so many ergs of energy. Well, that exact same amount of ergs of energy is now translated into how much action is coming back, in as far as most people call it kick, on the weapon that's coming back. The heavier the weapon, the more of that kick is going to be absorbed by the weight of the weapon, because you have to exert those ergs to just move it in the first place. Remember that an object at rest tends to stay at rest until acted upon by an exterior agent. So that exterior agent is now going to try to take this thing that's heavy and start moving it. So that's going to absorb most of it. So your recoil is going to be far less the heavier the weapon. The lighter the weapon, the recoil is going to be far greater. Okay, so that's just one of those things you have to take into effect. So you make sure you have a good grip on your pistol. Make sure you know how to operate it. Make sure you've been trained in how to properly operate it, and that's going to be that will do you extremely, extremely well. Very good suggestion. Thank you. So what I did was I found out that I'd been doing it wrong most of my entire life. What I did was I held it here and tried to operate the slide with this hand. And that's totally backwards so what you intuitively want to do and then what you do. When I was combat trained in the Army, was totally different from what I intuitively wanted to do. Okay, you don't want to have this and then try to operate the slide. You want to grab a hold of the slide and then use the pistol grip to push. Okay, and when you push and holding still, you've got a lot more force, and so that makes it a lot easier, of course, to slide and make that first round go into the chamber. Well, the L-shaped cane, hello tofu, you can't spin with. Now you can do most of the other stuff. So any of the other grips that you're going to use for form 1, 2, and 3, you can do those definitely. You can't do any of the spinning with the head. And there are cases where if you have that L and that can be considered a walking stick instead of a cane. And walking sticks are not considered medical devices. In order to be a medical device that meets ADA requirements, it has to have this handle. So that's, if you want to get on an airplane with it or get into a courtroom with it, you need that. Otherwise, you can do almost everything except for the spinning. So Remington 870 Express and 20 gauge, yep, I agree. And my next door neighbor came over and gave me a couple boxes of titanium 12 gauge, and then there were a couple boxes of titanium 410, and he just gave them to me. I said, no, that we don't work that way. And I said, so I came in and I gave him a box of 59 millimeter. I got the short end of the deal, but that's okay, because what's really important is now I know we had had a conversation about prepping. His girlfriend's mother and I had talked about prepping, and she's getting her solar backup system now, her battery backup system. She's going to get the exact same water catchment system that I have. Her husband had been getting them all prepped up until he passed away. So now I'm kind of becoming their prepper coach. So he brought me over these shotgun rounds that he didn't need. And I said, no, we don't, I don't work that way. I'm going to do a trade. We're going to barter. I said, what do you have for a pistol? He said, I have a P320. I said, okay. So I came in and I got a 6R P320, which is basically the M17, M18 in the Army. And I came in and got him a box of 9 millimeter. My box of 9 millimeter cost $50. The 4 boxes of shotgun ammunition, he got me probably $36 at the most. So I got a little bit lower on it, but I established a relationship. So now they know that they can trust me, and I know that they're considered that they think about me and that they're trying to take care of me. So I consider that an investment in trust, so that we can work together in a post-apocalyptic environment. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Um, I, I, I agree with you. That's why I bought it for everything I read. Now, the older Tauruses were considered, it's kind of like the Japanese toys of the 1950s compared to the Japanese toys of the 2000s. The same thing. The Tauruses pre-2000 did not have that good of a reputation, but since 2000, they have put out some outstanding quality stuff. And I think there's just enough slippage and enough, it's not as tight as, say, a Glock or a Sig Sauer, but that's an advantage, because that means if you have dirty ammunition or anything like that, it's going to fire it. And so yes, I wholeheartedly agree. I think it's a very wise decision. Any other ladies out there that are interested in a hand pew-pew, I would take Dragon Slayer's advice. I would take Lee's advice. I think good enough of it to where that's what I bought for my wife and daughter. Let me see. That's what I've been told. I haven't tried it, but that's what I've been told. Okay. So a police officer's wife didn't want to shoot anyone. He told her, okay, fire the first shot into the wood floor. But if they keep coming, they're crazy and you need to take them out. There is a problem with that, in Texas at least, with the stand your castle doctrine. So Texas does not allow warning shots. If you believe that your life is in danger, you're not even allowed to shoot to wound. You're allowed to shoot to stop the attack. You're allowed to shoot to defend yourself from imminent bodily harm. And so they don't. Texas, if I take a warning shot, that can be considered an act of aggression. So be careful with warning shots. So you have a Ruger 9mm. Which one? I really like the Ruger Security 9. I think that's a phenomenal piece of equipment, and it's only about $359, $360, somewhere around in there. Outstanding piece of equipment at a very reasonable price. It is a standard sized handgun, but I really do like it. I really, really like the Ruger Security 9. Okay, so let's get back to the book. So one of the things that they're doing at this market, the medium of exchange for currency is ending up being Morgan silver dollars and probably Liberty silver dollars. Most people wouldn't know the difference between the two. Morgan, they stopped minting Morgans. I want to say early 1920s. And then the Liberties came out, right, there was a 2 or 3 year hiatus where there were no silver dollars minted. And then this Liberty came out and it was printed or minted for a short while, 10 to 12 years after that. So the Liberty or the Morgan silver dollar. Later in the book, Morgan has, and it's funny that Morgan's using Morgans, but Morgan later in the book gives his daughters mercury dimes so that they can go buy, what was it they were buying? Oh, they were buying crepes. A guy had mixed up some pancake batter, I guess, and was making crepes and filling them with jam. And so he had a choice of two or three different kinds of jam. And Taylor put grape jam in hers. And so that was, and it cost 2 mercury dimes. Now remember that any coinage, 1964 and earlier, is 90% silver. The way it was designed was that the amount of silver in a Morgan silver dollar is that amount of silver is equivalent to $1. So 2 Benjamin Franklin halves at 90% silver have the same silver weight as does the Morgan. 4 quarters, and these were the old Washingtons that were silver. 4 of those quarters had the same silver content as a Morgan, or 10 mercury dimes has the same silver content as a Morgan. So everything was basically a decimal system as far as the weight, the amount of silver in the coins. So that's a very common, good way that you could use as a barter. It would not surprise me if we don't go back to something like that, although there are a lot of people saying that if we went back to a gold standard or a silver standard, it would totally destroy our economy. For those of you that I think Hello Tofu put the link, and I did put it in the show notes. I'm not sure if that was Wednesdays that we talked about, or maybe it might have been Tuesdays, where we got into a discussion about the real meaning behind the Wizard of Oz. I put in, and oh, by the way, I rewatched it because I was looking for the link and I saw it and said, well, I'm going to spend 2 hours and watch this movie. Bill Still is just fantastic. But he got some sort of journalism award for that documentary, by the way. But that first hour is basically the history of coinage and how we got ourselves into trouble with the Bretton Woods, establishing the Federal Reserve and everything else. And so there's a whole bunch of history behind United States governmental debt, and it got into, I didn't realize it, how much the bankers hated Lincoln for the greenbacks. And, there's some people who think that he was assassinated because of the issuance of the greenbacks. There are people who think that Garfield was in a duel with the bankers, and so that he was taken out by the bankers. And so there's been this constant contest or conflict between the banking system and the American government. And, that continues to this day, with the Fed still being an independent bank that basically owns all of our currency. So really strange how that gets. But anyhow, that was, I strongly recommend you see that Bill Still documentary on the Wizard of Oz. So the other thing, Hello Tofu, you have to be concerned about is you're responsible for where that bullet goes once it leaves the barrel. So if you are a bad shot and there is an innocent person in the line of fire and you accidentally hit that innocent person, regardless of the intentions on what you intended to do, you're still responsible for where that bullet goes. So the best thing to do is always try to hit your target first. And as a matter of fact, the prevailing thought is exactly what David's saying. Go for center of chest and two rapid succession double what they call a double tap. So that's two successive shots in the same place. I have modified that a little bit. I will not aim for the center of mass, which is the chest. I aim a little bit lower, and the reason is because of the number of people who now wear body armor. So typically, if you aim belly button or below, there is no armor there to protect anybody, whereas the center of mass is going to be protected by some sort of body armor. Of course, Morgan and Sarge, they double tap to the head. So they like that. When in doubt, gray matter comes out. Let me see here. Walmart usually has it on the oil. This is concerning that grease. Okay, Scott says that his training was 3 to 5 and more if there is still a threat. Yep. And, in the military, of course, we have unlimited ammunition, theoretically. A $1.40 face of 90% silver to equal 1 ounce. That's correct. So right now so you figure that and I'm going to use simple math. You figure that the Morgan is going to be around 2/3 of an ounce, just a little bit over 2/3 of an ounce of pure silver because it's 90%. Okay. So it's just around 0.67, 0.68 ounces, somewhere around in there. And then right now, silver is probably around $25 an ounce. Last I checked, and that was a couple of days ago. It was about $25 an ounce. So you figure about 2/3 of $25. So it's about $16, $17 is the face value of silver for a Morgan or a Liberty, somewhere in that vicinity. Then you find these people say you're going to get a whole pound of silver for $250. They're going to send you 16 Morgan silver dollars for $250, $300. I go, oh God. And people will buy it. Believe me, people will buy it. Let me see here. Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, that's I have been collecting silver and gold for a while. um, and if you read Furfall's books, if you read Selko's writings, if you read Venezuela Prepper's writings, what you find is that the fine metals, gold and silver especially, and other jewelry. Now it's really difficult. Gold, you have to kind of assay it because you don't know if it's 24 karat, 18 karat, 14 karat, all these other things. So I have a testing kit, and I have a set of scales. I have a jeweler's um, rouge, so that I know how I can test gold if I'm going to take it as a barter item. But most people are going to just accept it as being face value, gold and silver. When you start getting into stones like diamonds and rubies and things like that, then you've got all of the C's: color, carat, clarity. You've got the weight, which is carat. You got all these different things go into it. It's way difficult to appraise those as far as value. You're probably not going to get anything close to what it's actually worth. So I don't invest in any kind of precious stones. I just do precious metals, silver and gold. Yes, The Creature from Jekyll Island is an outstanding book. I strongly recommend it if you want to find out about the American Federal Reserve System and how it was created. That's the Bretton Woods Agreement. David's agreeing they could be wearing a vest. No, and I've been watching a lot of different people predicting because of the amount of ammunition that's being consumed in Europe right now on a daily basis, that pretty soon ammunition is going to be in short supply again. So I have heard several people, Travis on Prepared Homestead, Such on what is Such's channel? One of the first ones I subscribed to. Such is recommending it. Pepper Dog is recommending it. I mean, there's so many different people. Okay, 0.71 ounces, James is saying, for the 0.71 ounces for a Morgan. So, but anyhow, all these guys that pretty much have an in are saying buy ammo now. It may once again here in the very near future be in critically short supply. I was wrong. For the longest time, I told people buy the NATO calibers because they would be the first to go. They would be used in wartime, and we'd be stuck with all the hunting rounds. I said, and when you think of all the hunters around here, 30-06, 30-30, 270, 6 millimeter, you look at 6.5 Creedmoor and all these other hunting rounds that are out there. I said, those will always be on the shelves. Do you realize that from 2019 until 2021, I could not find a single 30-30 round anywhere in the 5-county Central Texas area? It wasn't until late, oh gosh, it wasn't even late. It wasn't even until probably March of 2022 that I could find hunting ammunition. So I was wrong about that. I thought I had my stuff together and could predict it, but I was totally wrong about the availability of hunting ammunition. You are absolutely right. So that's one of the things that we were extremely concerned about. We used to vet them health-wise. We used to vet them in a lot of different ways. We aren't doing that anymore. We have had here in Central Texas an uptick in tuberculosis, and the infection rate from the illegals that we have encountered when I was working in the homeless shelter was right at 11%. So 1 out of every 9 people that we encountered was infected with tuberculosis that was coming across the border illegally. So, be aware that, I get those books, make sure, and get this stuff, get your antibiotics, make sure you have plenty of that available and keep it up to date. Okay, so Hello Tofu agrees with me. She says, or I guess she's saying, Lee's stupid about valuing stones, and most other people are too. So I'm not the only one. Sensible Prepper. Thank you, James. Yeah, so it's Sensible Prepper Such. He's saying that there's probably going to be, and he has a guy that comes on that with him every once in a while who owns a gun store, and they're saying the same thing. Another good one is God, Family, and Guns. And he is a Baptist minister Independent Baptist in Missouri. And he goes to Maggie's gun shop on a regular basis. And Maggie's been saying the same thing, that it looks like that their ammunition is starting to wane a little bit, the supply that they're getting. So, it's going to be where they are producing nothing but, there may be a demand for nothing except NATO calibers. And so the NATO calibers, of course, are going to be the 9 millimeter, the 7.62 which is equivalent to the 308, the 5.56, which is equivalent to the 223. So those are the 3 NATO calibers. I have heard, and I don't know enough to really speak that much about it. I have heard that the Army is considering changing its standard rifle once again. And I believe that they are going to a 6.8 millimeter round. Somebody correct me on that. But I've heard that they are testing a new round, and it's going to be in between the 5.56 and the 7.62. So let's see. Yeah, and so make sure you get the proper books so you can look up the, symptoms and everything else, and then what would be the appropriate medication for it. My problem, continuing on my terrible allergies, I'm allergic to azithromycin, which is one of the primary tools that they're going to use for tuberculosis. So I would have to use a secondary drug. um, yeah, I would not go for any of the, any of the older, calibers. I would not go for any of the exotic calibers. I would stick to NATO calibers, and even though they may be in short supply, I have a feeling that those are going to accidentally fall off. When I was teaching at Goodfellow Air Force Base, when I was teaching the Russian voice intercept operator course, uh, somebody found out that I was a prepper, and so he said, "Come here, I want to show you something." And he took me out in the desert, and there was this cache that he had, 6.8 millimeter. James is saying, "James, you're providing a wealth of information tonight. Thank you so much for that." Um, but he took me out in the desert, and he had this cache out in the desert. And I mean, he had stuff in there I could not believe. And all he wanted me to do was buy him cigarettes at the commissary. In exchange, he would give me things like squad automatic weapon or M79s and 40 millimeter grenades and everything else. And I decided it was best for me to opt out of that exchange. And he told me that what happened was when and this was before it all became really public. He said that the CIA was running guns down to Nicaragua at the time, and of course San Angelo was right on the flight path from where they were flying, where they procured from and flew to Nicaragua, and so they would just kick whatever was closest to the door out over the area where he was getting what he was getting. And so I decided the best thing for me to do was just stay as far away from that as possible. I didn't want to get involved at all. Um, Dragon Slayer, I would consider just keeping it in. I would consider keeping it in jewelry form, and the reason is there's going to be less suspicion as to the quality of it if you have it in jewelry form. If you have it in, if you melt it down and make your own bars, and that's why I don't get into hand pour stuff. Is anytime you have a hand pour or it looks like it's been altered, that gives an opportunity for somebody to suspect that it's not as pure as you're claiming it to be. Okay. Okay. So 6.8. David, I thought that same thing. And then I took a look at the cost of the reloader, and I took I took a look at the cost of powder, primers, casings, uh, lead, and everything else. And I said, golly, maybe what I should do is just go ahead and buy extra ammunition instead of spending all the money on the reloader. I seriously considered it. I still am enamored with it. Uh, but what I've decided is I'm just going to go ahead and buy ammunition instead. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that I could probably do something as a reloader, but then you got to stockpile the ammunition, you got to stockpile the powder, the equipment, I don't know. I guess I'm lazy that way. I just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and buy. Now shotgun reloading, yeah, I think that's definitely worth it. So okay, back to the book. We're going to talk about penalties here in a little bit, but what would you think would be the appropriate crime for theft? I'm going to get into more of this here in just a sec. Oh gosh, it's already 9 o'clock. Wow, we got to get hurry. How to preserve eggs? You can take mineral oil and put it on the outside. Was in the book. One of the things that Sarge is talking about and that Morgan's talking about is that things will be changed and court will be held in the street where the conduct is um, caught or apprehended doing it. So they have this guy Nathan. Nathan was a chicken thief, and while he was stealing the chickens, the owners of the chickens tried to protect their property. Came out. Nathan defended his life and shot one of them with a shotgun, and was running away from them when he was caught. And so the two owners of the chicken came up, and Morgan, of course, is the sheriff, and he says, "What's going on?" They said, and Nathan says, they're shooting at me. I had to shoot in self-defense. And the two guys said, well, he was stealing our chickens. And so Morgan said, well, are you a chicken thief? And he says, well, yes. He says, did you, in the act of committing your crime, shoot one of them who was trying to protect his property? And Nathan says, yes. And so Morgan just does the Vietnamese police chief on Nathan, poor Nathan, and he's left there in the streets with this hole in his head. When in doubt, gray matter out becomes the rule. Then let me see. Did not know that you could, and it talks about it in the book, you can add mineral oil to from the transformers in the backyards and everything else that are used as a coolant. You can add that to diesel and extend the life of your diesel and increase the availability of diesel fuel. They talk about a nasopharyngeal airway, NPA. That is now standard equipment in the Army IFAC, and I believe in the Marines as well. So one thing that most people don't realize is if you take a look at it, normally you're going to insert the NPA with lubricant in the right nostril, because the right nostril on every human, almost every human, there's always an exception, is slightly larger than the left side. So it's slightly larger on the right. Why do you insert an NPA? Because a person who is going into shock and laying on their back, their tongue falls back and then covers the esophageal entrance so that they can't get any air. And so the trachea. And so what you want to do is with the NPA, it goes down behind the tongue and keeps the trachea open so that you can continue to have air into the suspect. You don't have to hold their tongue out of the way or into the injured person. He talks, and then at the end, I want to talk about this because this guy walks up, he's got a backpack, he just lays it on the ground, he starts walking away. Leanne and Taylor are there and they see it. They're eating their crepes they just bought for their Mercury dimes. And Leanne sees it going on. She runs after the guy and says, hey, you left your bag. Taylor runs after the bag to get it to return to the guy. And as she's approaching it, it goes boom. And so this was one of those Boston Marathon type of events. And Leanne's seriously injured at the end of the book. We don't know if she's going to make it or not. It looks good. But now remember, this is the second of his daughters. Taylor got shot in book 5. Now Leanne is the victim of an exploding bomb in book 6. And so it's getting kind of personal as far as Morgan's concerned with his daughters getting injured. But I want to spend maybe 5 minutes. Let's talk about crime and punishment in a post-SHTF environment. Maybe we should save that for a different discussion. Let me get all these comments in here. We'll save that and we'll talk about, how about we talk about that on Monday night, or not Monday night, but next Wednesday. We'll just talk about what would be the effects. How do we deal with crime in the streets after a post-SHTF environment? And we'll do that next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So, replacement parts, springs, ejectors, extractors, all those little bitty things. Make sure you get those. AR-15s have a complete kit of the most common parts and springs that consumables basically for about $30. You can get all those spare parts, which is great. I also recommend if you're going to have an AR-15, make sure you get an extra buffer spring. So there are things you need to have as far as some stuff to keep your weapons going. I'm lucky because I bought the Taurus G2Cs. I have 2 of them. I can always cannibalize one to keep the other one going. I don't have 2 of any other weapons. And so that's something you might want to consider as well, as maybe at a pawn shop you come across another weapon that's the same as yours. Buy it strictly so you'll have maintenance and spare parts. Garage sales, there's also, go to estatesales.net, I believe, but you can go to estatesales.net and then you can tell them the radius that you're willing to travel, and they will tell you of all the estate sales that are happening in your area. Most places they're prohibited from putting out guns and ammo at an estate sale. You can't display those. However, you can ask if they have any ammunition or any hunting equipment, ammunition and firearms. And if you ask, then they're allowed to sell it to you. But, they're just not allowed to display it and show it to you. Yeah, so let's talk about backwoods justice and how the effect of that, and we'll do that Wednesday night. James agrees with me. Yeah, I reload shotgun. Shotgun's easy, and I don't have to worry about resizing brass or necking it or anything like that, and dents or anything else, or pressure, pressures and all that kinds of stuff. So Yeah, I'll just stick with doing shotgun shells. Uh, yes, and who was that? Oh, Goshen Prepping was talking about that today. He was talking about, I think it was a list of the 15 things he always looks for when he goes to a garage sale. Um, so absolutely. Let's see here. Black and Decker rake and shovel in the Dollar General for $10 each. They were gone quick. Oh, I bet. So I get mine at Lowe's. I buy I forget what the name is, the Lowe's brand. But I buy their because it's not wooden, it's a polymer. And what I found is I've got a rake. No, I've got a shovel. I've got a long handled shovel out in the garage, and the wood. I didn't keep it oiled, and so the wood is starting to splinter and everything else. I'm thinking, do I want to buy a new one and replace it, or do I want to sand that one down and try to get it to where I don't get splinters if I'm using it or anything like that? Yeah, I may just throw it away and buy a new one. I don't know. We can tell. Yeah, Goshen Prepping was the one talking about the what to look for at the garage sales. Okay, let's go ahead and call this one a quit, and then let's agree that Wednesday night we're not doing Mondays because I got my religious class. Yeah, fiberglass handle rakes, shovels, post hole diggers, etc. I also bought a set of bolt cutters, and I have several of each, only because I know how I use them and how long they last. I would also make sure I keep some anti-rust or some oil or something like that. Um, I have found that a lot of times the my shovels, if I don't keep them well maintained, they have a tendency to rust. So because you're using them in wet soil and everything else, and so you do want to take good care of them. Make sure you keep the rust off of them. Um, let's see what this comment is here, and then we'll go. You can, but I mean, I'll have to show you this. The wood is really cracked. I mean, really, really cracked. Now, remember, I'm allergic to leather, so everybody else can wear wet leather work gloves. I can't. I wear cloth gloves, so that I'm very susceptible to splinters. So, if you wear leather gloves, you can probably get by with having a rake in the condition or a shovel in the condition that I've got. But I can't because I can't wear leather work gloves. Okay, so Numbers chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remember that Wednesday night, we're going to discuss crime and punishment in a post-apocalyptic world and get your thoughts and ideas about it. If one of you would like to come on live with me and discuss that, if you have some really great ideas about that, okay, so we're talking about this book right here, SJ or Pat. This is the one we just finished. I'll put the link for the new one. We'll be talking the last Thursday of May, which is going to be book 7 of his series. And that's what we'll be reading for the month of May. And then we'll discuss it at the end of May. And let me see, read what Pat says here. It looks like it's something personal and important. Oh yeah, Pat, that can be devastating. I'm so sorry. And don't worry, send me an email. We'll catch you up. We'll whatever, we can talk. We can pray. We can do whatever you need. I'm here to support you. I know you all are out there to support me. I'm here to support you, and we're helping each other. As a matter of fact, we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. And remember, please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because our community, this group of people working together and sharing your great ideas. We had a new one tonight, James Carroll. Thank you for being here. Such great comments, such great additions. S.J. Mullen, Dragon Slayer, Hello Tofu, Scott Hummer, all you guys with your great, fantastic comments. Thank you so much. You're the ones who make this what it is. So I appreciate you. Please be safe. Take care. And I will see you Tuesday night for the nonfiction book club, and that's where we're going to start in this on When Crises Hits Suburbia. So we're going to do chapters 1 and 2 of this book Tuesday night. Wednesday night, we'll talk about SHTF, post-apocalyptic justice, and then there won't be a Thursday night because that's only the last Thursday of the month. Take care, everybody. Be good. Bye-bye.